Hello and welcome to Monocle on Fashion, a brand new show on Monocle Radio dedicated to the inner workings of the fashion industry. I'm Natalie Theodosi, Monocle's fashion director and your host for this new show. For our second episode, we have a special series of interviews with the artists, curators, and filmmakers who have partnered with the Italian luxury label Miu Miu on its latest project, Tales and Tellers, presented during the Art Basel Fair in Paris. Miu Miu is one of the most fascinating brands to watch at the moment. Firstly, its collections have never looked better. Shoppers around the world, and I count myself among them, are hunting down the brand's elegant suede jackets, the androgynous loafers, and quilted leather bags that always seem to be sold out. Its success is very clearly reflected in the brand's revenues too. At a time when most luxury businesses are reporting steep declines, Miu Miu is growing against all odds. Just this week, the Prada Group reported that the brand has grown 105% in the third quarter of 2024. How do they do it seems to be the question on everyone's lips. Best-in-class product is of course a big part of the equation, but there's more to it. With her Miu Miu collections, Miuccia Prada finds a way to incorporate musings on womanhood, humor, and just the right amount of quirk into her best-selling clothing, piquing customers' curiosities. And she makes a point to invite a great set of creatives, both up-and-coming and established, to join the conversation. For the past decade, Miu Miu has invited filmmakers to create short films for its ongoing Women's Tales series. This year, they've taken things to a new level, partnering with Art Basel Paris and bringing the films to life with an exhibition that blended film, music, choreography, and fashion. I attended the opening at the Palais d'Iéna in Paris, where the Miu Miu shows also take place, and spoke to the exhibition's curator, Goshka Macuga, as well as two of the filmmakers involved, Meriem Bennani, a Moroccan-born artist based in New York, and Haifa Mansour, who hails from Saudi Arabia and is now based in Los Angeles. I could have kept talking to these women for hours. We spoke about the importance of bringing artists together, starting cross-cultural conversations, and highlighting non-Western perspectives. The relationship between art and fashion has often been disregarded as superficial and purely transactional. But this is an example of a fashion business participating in the art world in a meaningful way, not only as a sponsor, but as an active participant in the creation of culture. And as Bennani tells me, at the end of the day, there's fashion and there's the fashion economy, just like there's art and the art economy. It might feel hard to divide the two, but good shows and good fashion brands can sell clothes, but also share ideas about how people want to present themselves at a particular moment in time. First up, we have Goshka Macuga telling us how she put the whole project together. Macuga also created the set for Miu Miu's most recent Spring-Summer 2025 runway show, which included a newspaper called The Truthless Times. As someone who grew up in the Soviet Union, she shares how she came up with this very timely concept and the importance of always seeking the truth.
So, it was the first time that I did anything for a fashion show. I collaborated with people before, but obviously much smaller scale. And of course here the scale of it was slightly scary and overwhelming because I thought, oh my God, how many people are coming? And then of course you're looking at like 800 people or even more being in one room and experiencing all of this. And then you worry about how the clothes and the dynamic of what you present will coexist. And then, of course, you want people to actually understand what your message was. You want people to get into this and follow it rather than just seeing that it was something insignificant and it was just a backdrop. And I think that this is what I was afraid of, like if I create a content and if I create something that actually requests from people to dive deeper into it. Will it get lost in the fashion show? That they will come, look at the show, and they will leave. And I think that lots of people, not enough that they looked at the newspaper, they talked about it, that they talked about the essence of the project in a meaningful way, and then of course drew parallels between the two narratives of what the clothing was representing and what the work was representing, and how the two things came together at that event. So I was really surprised with how well that came in a way at the end.
No, absolutely, and I think it enhanced what the collection was trying to say. I'm curious, what was the starting point with this idea of truthless times? Of course, it seems so topical and so relevant, which is why you grabbed people's attention, but where did it start from, and what were those conversations with Mutual Prada look like?
Yes, so this has always been within my work somehow, the information, communication, and the truth. And I think that this, for me, it's a very personal thing, because I come from Poland. I was educated still during the kind of communist era or the Cold War era. So, of course, knowing the truth was a personal investigation. It wasn't given. And I think that I took it away to my work, or to the method of how I work, that in a way dictates how I really respond to the context of the environment that I work within. So when we started talking about, the possibility of me creating something, I had few ideas, few proposals, and Miuccia Prada was very much into this proposal, and she was very excited, and I know that she genuinely loves this newspaper. She was so interested in the texts that were commissioned. She read them, and I think that she really appreciated the overall design, because it's continuously going from sort of this idea of fiction and reality, but it's also bringing problematics that are there on the surface for us to deal with. It's about how we identify ourselves, how do we know what is truthful and what isn't, what is the source of finding information today. And we're experiencing this in the news, we experience these problems on all levels, and I think that it wasn't only something that I felt close to and I wanted to investigate. I thought that everybody, including the artists that participated in the editorial of the newspaper, Fabio Certis, who helped me to choreograph the performance for this exhibition, and everybody from Miu Miu was really drawn by this and felt that it was a very current topic.
And I'm curious, also having gone through 10 years of films and seeing the stories of these incredible women, did you learn anything new? Did you discover anything about womanhood and those conversations that you might have not thought about before, having done all the work revisiting the archives of all those films?
I think that I've learned that it's all work in progress, that nothing is set and everything is evolving, and that's beneficial to us. But also sometimes you take steps forward and you also take steps back. And I think that doesn't relate to individualized by social groups, and I think that what was very important here is bring this idea of community, that as a community, women are much stronger. As groups, women are stronger. And even if we just brought singular characters from each movie, creating these dynamics where they become duos or trios or bigger groups was an amazing metaphor for what needs to happen really, or what has been happening in reality. We were doing rehearsals with 105 people, so because we have three sets of doing performance here for the show. And of course we were doing first the rehearsals with their own clothes, and then we had the general rehearsal when they were all dressed in Miu Miu clothes, and it was really something.
Yeah.
The transformation was amazing. So we were so excited, and it just made fabulous really what happened. It was it was very much like a most amazing spectacle that you would want to be part of. And I think that that's it. It's about shifting things and just making them something very particular, individual, and special. And within this, we're showing so many different cases, so many different characters that are not only coming from the Western context, but people who live in different cultural backgrounds. And I think that, the clothes, and in a way you can marry the two so well, and you can identify people so well through the fashion of this brand, and this kind of heritage of 10 years of design. So that was very interesting as well for me to observe.
Of course, there's a commercial element in fashion, just like in art, in every industry, but it does seem, especially when you go deep and there's collaboration in projects like yours, that it does lend itself as a platform where you can express different perspectives, especially, like you said, non-Western perspectives as well, to bringing new voices, celebrate artists. Is that something you've always found, that fashion can offer that, as well as just beautiful clothes for us to wear on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think that people like to be skeptical and put it down and say, don't be vain, there's something more than how you look. But I'm sorry, the fashion, the clothes and the look makes a huge difference. Lots of people without the clothes cannot identify themselves, I think. And this is not about emptiness, this is about giving a message and somehow communicating to others who you are. And I think that that's the strength of it. That's, for me, it's like instant way of communicating with someone.
That was Goshka Macuga. You're listening to Monocle on Fashion. Next up, Meriem Bennani talks about her ongoing collaboration with Prada and Miu Miu, from taking over the live stream video for the Miu Miu Spring-Summer 2022 show with her mother, to joining fellow artists and filmmakers in Paris. I love talking to Bennani, who challenges this idea of what's considered a genuine partnership between an artist and a brand, and talks about the importance of fashion as self-expression.
So I did the video and the kind of like runway show for the 2021. In 2021, it was the first of the series. And I guess what happened, it was like end of COVID kind of. And I think what, Mrs. Prada had said was that she, she's always worked in fashion, but a big part of her life is the Fondazione Prada and art. And she felt like, because runway shows couldn't be attended as much, that it was kind of like bringing this question of like the runway video, having this like standard, it's just like kind of a communication standard, like about seeing the show, but that it was maybe time to push the boundaries of what it could be. And because of her experience working with artists throughout the years, she kind of said artists are really good at breaking genre and pushing boundaries, and I think an artist should kind of like take over like the runway video. And I thought it was, for me, that was really appealing, because I work in installation, sculpture, video, but a lot of my work has to do with observing different kind of like mediatic languages, like of filmmaking or just like of image making, and also different genres of filmmaking, and being aware of them and playing with the form, breaking them. So that was immediately exciting. And I like a challenge. I also like work in installation, and I had to come up with the video concept, but also like do the whole, concept for the runway, like the actual architectural aspect of it. So it was kind of just hitting all these things that I like doing.
And it was a real family project, right? Your mom was involved?
Right, yes, but that's the case for a lot of the videos I make, and I had done multiple videos where my mom is a character, and this time I feel like Miu Miu is thinking a lot about different types of womanhood. And so I was thinking about my relationship to womanhood always like brings me back to thinking about women that I watched growing up. And I thought also this idea of, I guess, bringing my mother in a fashion space where she would get all the like like proper like hair and makeup and stuff that I couldn't give in my videos that are way more like lower budget. I thought it would like be like a kind of fabulous way to like push our collaboration in a way where I'm like, I see, how we can do something. And like I just like working with people that are familiar, that I know well. And I think being in the more unfamiliar world of fashion, where things are can be a bit more transactional, like with the idea of a model, and versus I've always just filmed documentary. I wanted to keep some of like that tenderness and documentary relationship with people, like where there's like a real life relationship, and bring that into maybe the more kind of like standard fashion thing where we're gonna be models wearing clothes. So mixing people I know. There's a lot of like friends were also in the shoot. So yeah.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that, because like you say, in fashion shows, there's a transactional element to it, and it must be different to creating an installation for a museum for your usual audience. Mm-hmm. How do you think about it differently, or how do you make sure that it's still a genuine collaboration when you're working with a fashion brand, when there's also a commercial aspect on the runway?
I feel like genuine it's not at the opposite of, it's like, I feel like what genuine means can also be like a very manipulative idea. Like even in documentary, this idea of the genuine, the sincere is often used as a value to justify doing the exact opposite. So I think it's not so much like on that scale of genuine to not. I think I just kind of like knowing that the kind of function of the fashion show is to sell the clothes, or like new ideas around what it means to wear clothes as a woman, or like in the case of Miu Miu, because it's specifically, I do think that there's like always something really interesting to learn about culture. Do you know that I'm not in the fashion world, but I like to look at, for me, the good shows, like they say something about how people want to present themselves in a specific time. So that's something I'm really interested in. And the way that I'm interested in like how some cinema like is portraying, like how people portray themselves online, how people portray like each other, like in movies or reality TV, or just like so I don't necessarily make that distinction. I just think that I was aware of the fact that I'm gonna have to work with models wearing clothes that I haven't chosen, and then like these bodies are gonna be next to the people I chose for the video, and being aware of that, I kind of made the conscious choice of kind of working with people that feel like friends or family, in contrast, I guess.
No, you're right, and I think those two can coexist. You can sell clothes, but also there can be ideas about womanhood and our relationships with our bodies, culture.
Yeah, at least the transaction is clear. The art world is fully transactional. Like you make art that's supposed to be political or kind of questioning things, but really it's just a product in an economy, and it's going to be bought by a collector or maybe an institution, and it's really just it's just a bit more like dressed within ethics and politics, but really it's a market. So there's something maybe sometimes liberating in just knowing what the purpose is. I think not liberating, but like I think it's clear.
That's so interesting. And also, what's on a more personal level your own relationship with fashion, and do you find that dressing can be a form of self-expression, of discovering who you are?
Yeah, it's kind of like there's fashion, and then there's the fashion economy, and there's art and the art economy, and there's film and the film industry. So like if I think about fashion outside of its economy, which is hard to separate, but I'm not like a crazy fashion person, but I really enjoy it actually. Like I enjoy it almost on a sculptural level. When I was very lucky to go to the latest Prada runway show like a month ago, and I felt like it was like sculpture. It's like that for me is really exciting, just like on a creative point of view. And I think it's obviously it's a mode of expression. It's like the most basic thing to say about fashion, but I'm interested. In general, I'm interested in media. And for me, that's like a very prominent one, like it's everywhere. Everyone has to make that decision. So I'm interested of like what it means and, what it reveals about so many kind of layers of socio-political realities.
That was Meriem Bennani. And finally, Saudi filmmaker Haifa Mansour. In an emotional, truly heartwarming conversation, Haifa tells me about the film she created for Miu Miu that spotlights a different, more private side to Saudi women.
I grew up in Saudi Arabia where women are all completely, especially when I grew up, Saudi Arabia was very conservative. And women were all completely covered, right? And fashion was one of the outlets for them, and with women gatherings and everything, to show individuality and show their personality. So I got very fascinated by fashion. And Miu Miu and Prada as head by an amazing woman. And I feel that it is wonderful to be with an enterprise that is so big and so pro-women and women's empowerment. And Women's Tales, when they approached me for that, I loved it. I thought it is giving me a little bit an outlet to do a little bit of something that is fun and fashion and speak about my culture. So all these things together came, and that is why I love Miu Miu. And the people around Miu Miu are so approachable and nice and supportive. So I really cherish that relationship.
And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your amazing film, because it does put fashion quite front and center in a way that maybe some other films don't. You focus on the wedding and the sort of atmosphere of that and how women are dressed in private and in public, which is so interesting, especially in the context of talking about Saudi Arabia. So tell me a little bit about the idea, and also how does fashion come in and like you said, empower women or give them an outlet for expression?
Absolutely. I felt the only image a lot of people, when you go and search Saudi women in the internet, it's all completely covered women, which is rightfully so, because women in public, that is how they present themselves. And I wanted to show the real Saudi women. The real Saudi women are sassy, they have a lot of agency, and it is because the culture is hard on them and very limiting. They don't have a lot of space. They have a small space to move in, and they always try to make that space bigger, whether it comes to fashion, expressing themselves, having bigger personality, being a singer. And my mother loved to sing, but she comes from a prominent kind of a family who just looks down at the arts. And she's a diva. She has that performer, personality. I don't. I'm behind the camera. I'm shy. I'll just go and document things. But she belongs in front of the camera. And always breaks my heart. She's older now. And it breaks my heart. She never got that chance to do that,
But it's beautiful, because I think with your work, she inspired you with your personality, and so nothing ever goes to waste, right? And you're now telling the stories inspired by her incredible personality.
Absolutely, her bigger than life personality. But yes, I think it is amazing to see women like her, survive.
As part of this interview series in the morning, I also spoke to Goshka and Elvira, who have been putting the project together. And one thing that kept coming up in the conversation was that they wanted to show perspectives that are not just Western, which I think is a very, very important thing to talk about, and very important when you are creating this kind of culture and project.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about that and why it's important for you specifically. You're based in LA, but you grew up in Saudi, to talk about your culture and to show the personalities of the women, despite the sort of the stereotypes that people might have.
Absolutely. I think representation is very important. I feel, and also it is I when I make films in Saudi, it's hard, because there is cultural differences and hard for films to travel. So I try to open my culture a little bit, so it has an audience in the Western world without losing its authenticity, because it is important for representation. I think it is and after all, we have those differences, but at the end, we're all human beings. We have the same aspiration. We have the same kind of love for our kids, for our family, for things like that. And that is what brings us as people. And that is, so it is bringing a little flavor, but at the end, we enjoy similar stories. And I grew up watching a lot of American cinema, a lot of Chinese and Indian films. And that made me appreciate other cultures. And I wanted to be part of the conversation for sure.
And do you enjoy in this space specifically seeing your work next to so many different women's work and all your perspectives, all your stories coming together in one kind of square room? They were describing it almost as an agora or like a place of exchange.
It is amazing because we all work in different places, and it's kind of like you feel very lonely. We don't visit each other on sets. We don't have like a culture that brings us together. But it is really nice to see. It creates a sort of a sisterhood. You go and talk to other filmmakers. You hear about their stories. You compare your stories, workplace, and it's just like you feel you are in a big gathering with a lot of women who do the same thing, and you just learn and listen and joke, and you have similar experiences. And I think solidarity is very important. I think embracing sisterhood as we move in the culture as women is very important. Women's culture, unfortunately, can sometimes, because there are limited opportunities, can be a little bit competitive, and women can butt heads. And people are encouraging women to butt head with other women. But I think we need to move away from that. We need to embrace more of a sisterhood and support each other, because that is the only way we can survive as a group collectively. We should learn that from men, because men have this brotherhood, and they march together. And that is, I think, a lesson we should learn as women. Yeah.
And fashion can bring us together, right?
Oh, yeah, we love fashion.
I always see joy in everyone's eyes when they speak about Miu Miu, their outfits, and you all look incredible.
Yes. For God's sake, we go to the bathroom together. We should bring that culture. We should bring it with us.
That was Haifa Al-Mansour. And that's all for today's show. Make sure you subscribe. We have more big interviews and exclusive insights into the world of fashion planned for the rest of the year. Our first season is brought to you by our friends at My Theresa Men, the global retailer offering the finest edit in luxury. Today's episode was produced and edited by Lily Austin. I'm Natalie Theodosi. Thank you for listening.